Okay, so we had a pretty big announcement today around the new dynamic reward system, and what a perfect update from Sorare to really apply to my spreadsheet, my kind of win percentage. And so that's what I did today. I dove into the numbers, and I think I can show you not just what they've said, but how that applies to your chances, odds of winning the different tournaments. So let's dive right in. First, uh, by the way, be sure to like and share and comment on all those things. You know the drill. But yeah, just starting out. So I want to get this in front of as many people. I want to tell YouTube that this is worthy content. So please, if you will. Now let's get into this. So, if you've watched the original videos, you'll see this win percentage that I've calculated. Just a quick note on this. This is unchanged to the new scoring system, but I did add in this past weekend's numbers, and just to make note of it as a bit of a reflection, what we see is that the winning percentage was higher pretty much across the board, which means the number of participants kind of fell off a little. I think that's as people had players that leagues were ending and teams weren't playing as much, so they couldn't field as many teams. Makes sense. Challenger Europe had a huge winning. You had a 16-17% chance of winning if you fielded a team. Somehow I didn't, and it was my best side, and I'm shocked, but I didn't make it this week. But this again was due to the fact that there were a lot of clubs not playing, as they're finishing up the season. So a bit of an anomaly. When I go to actually crunch these sort of across multiple weeks, I'll have to take this into account. But that's not what you're here for. Really, you want to see what we learned today around this new reward system. So, just a quick overview. They've posted a blog on it. You'll see it in the platform as well. But, the nutshell is more teams. When there's more teams, there's more rewards. When there's less teams playing, there's less rewards. So even some of the numbers I'm applying, I'll show you shortly, only apply to this weekend. And then in the following weeks, they'll have to change and because of this dynamic aspect to it. This I found kind of interesting. So new tournament rules, they'll open a region if there's at least one club that's playing from that region. They open All-Star when there are two regionals open. So this I think actually lends itself to bundle purchases. So if you can sort of, have a handful of players from one club, you might luck yourself into a situation where you are among some of the only participants that can participate in a certain tournament, and your percentage of winning is that much greater if you satisfy one of these areas. So I quite like that. I bought 2 bundles of Galatasaray, and so next year it'll be interesting to see if I can take advantage of that. This new game week window, so basically they're saying that there's no gaps between the game weeks. I appreciate why they're doing this, but it's a bit unfortunate because I do think that some people do rely on that Ethereum bonus to maybe purchase a last minute player to plug into a lineup, or maybe winning a card that they can use immediately. It's a bit too bad that anything you gain from that past week really has to almost wait a half a week now to be usable. The reward allocation is what I'm going to dive into more into the spreadsheet, so we'll go into this in more detail. And then, Global Nation's kind of a different thing. Maybe I'll touch on that in a future week. I guess it's coming up right around the corner. The Ethereum thresholds are staying in place through the summer, it looks like, but they are looking to tie it to a dollar value. And they're going to make a lot of this reward allocation transparent so that we can look at it and see how they're allocating it. And I think that can help all of us. They've always taken such a transparent approach, so good on them for this. Okay, so let's go back to the spreadsheet. So first thing I did was just simply change these numbers of what positions pay out, how many placings pay out, and how that impacts win percentage. Go to that. So notice I've grayed out Champion Europe, Challenger Europe, because they're not included in this new system yet. They'll obviously get on board when the leagues start up again. But simply all I did was show you that, okay, well, in the past, you had to finish in the top 130 to win a card in Global All-Star. Well, now it's 309 for this weekend at least. And 38th, top 38 in Div 3 payout, and so on. And so how does it, so obviously ignore any of these winning points because that's based on the points that were won that week and based on the placement. So it's irrelevant here, but just the win percentage. And I just want to take note of this because what we see to me. So here you often, in the past, you had these kind of, actually I can just show you, because the Champion Europe, Challenger Europe have gone unchanged. You see that the percentage of winning was actually pretty close. In a lot of these divisions, they were fairly close. You sort of had an equal chance. And if you had an equal chance, then you might as well go into Div 3 if you had a good lineup, because you're going to win better cards. Now it looks like they've actually deliberately halved the chance. So they made it about twice as hard. And it seems to me on purpose, because it's truly across the board, even in applying these numbers to past weeks. It's not exactly 50%. They probably want to make it a little bit more enticing. So maybe it's about a 45% or so chance from Div 3 to Div 4. But you can see quite, if we just sort of glance at it, it roughly takes you, it's roughly half, or in other words, it's twice as hard to win in Group 3. And this is a theme I'll go back to, is it's clear to me that they're trying to create different tiers and place players like us into relevant tiers and sort of create more gaps between Div 4, Div 3, and I would only imagine Div 2 and 1. So now if we actually plug in the points that you needed to get 309th place or 38th compared to previous weeks where this was 130th, we can see actually where the benefit lies. So we're going to just look at Div 4 right now, and then I've done Div 3 as well. We'll come back to that. So Division 4, Global All-Star. So you previously had to finish 130th. Now you can finish 309th, at least, again, for this weekend. It's dynamic, so this will change. But for this weekend, that's where you're at. Now, I just took this last weekend's points. I mean, so obviously there's going to be some randomness and things like that. So don't take these numbers totally to heart. It's a 1 week sample. In the future, maybe I'm going to average it out as we get several weeks down the track. But last week, you needed 328 points to finish 130th in Global All-Star Div 4. Now, if that same week played out this weekend, you would only need 307 points to finish 309th place and thus earn yourself a Tier 3 rare card. Does that make sense? Let's have a look at that. You used to need to finish 130th, now 309th. You used to need 328 points to get that 130th spot. Now you only need 307 points to get the 309th spot to win this Tier 3 rare. And you can go down this list and basically from 75th to 117th, 65th to 103rd, 65th to 1. So there's just purely more winners here now. And then, of course, because there's more winners, the points have reduced. And what we're seeing is somewhere around a 15 to, well, this one's 37 point difference. Again, small sample size, just looking at last week's numbers. But it shows you that it's quite nice. I mean, 30 odd points around among your 5 players. That's 6 points difference per player. And you're still in the winner's circle. And what we also see here is the amount of winners. So for this, we're seeing, what does that work out to? Maybe 300, about 700 winners or so. If we go to Tier 2 rare, also a massive jump. I mean, here we're looking at about 250 winners, which is quite substantial. And so Global All-Star used to have to finish 34th. Now you can finish 107th. You needed 360 points last weekend, pretty much across the board, between 350 and 370. And now you need kind of in that 330 range, it looks like. So, we're seeing kind of around, again, about a 30-point gain. You can basically be 30 points worse off, roughly, and still be in the running for a Tier 2 rare. And then at Tier 1 rares, and you'll see with Star, it starts to level off. So here we're only seeing a difference of maybe 5 to 7 points. Here's only 2. We're not talking, and again, it's such a small sample size. It's 1 week, so these numbers could be dramatically different week to week depending on who's playing and the lineups people put. But we do see more winners, and we see roughly a flat level of points. I mean, I think you still would say in both instances you need sort of 370, 375 to even have a shot. And same with Star Rare. I mean, this is an anomaly, I would say. It's amazing. In last week, that the difference from 3rd to 5th was 431 points to 404. I mean, I can't imagine that's going to happen week to week. I bet you it's going to be more like this, just a gap of 2, 3, 5 points, something like that. So these ones don't change as much. There's certainly a few more winners, but the points you need to get a star rare are about the same. The points you need to get a tier 1 rare are going to be about the same, maybe a slight difference. But really, to get a tier 3 rare or tier 2 rare, you really have some room here. You have some room to be a little less effective and still be in the running. If we go down to Div 3, it's interesting. So the biggest change here is that there's actually no tier 2 rares. So in previously in Global All-Star, if you finished 50th, U23 30th, 25 25, you were getting a tier 2 rare. Now you don't even get one. So you needed these points. Now it doesn't really matter. And what's interesting is that basically these people are now over here. And this is my point about that. They're trying to move people that are in this area. So as you can see, there were 50 winners here. Well, now, I mean, there's more than 50 that have been added here. There was 30 winners here, 25 winners. It's about, well, there's 29 winners been added here, 21 and 50 there. So, they've taken all the winners here and they've actually moved them back into the Div 4. And, clearly creating a bit of a gap that if you're kind of a tier 1 rare player, if you're someone who shoots for those cards and that those types of cards really will really help your lineup. They kind of want you to be playing up in the Div 4. My fault for scrolling. Tier 2 rather. If you're kind of where tier 2 rares really help your lineup, they're the type of cards you're playing, you're probably, you belong kind of in that Div 4 range. And so they're kind of removing people that are really aspiring for this level out of Div 3. So to tier 1 rare, which I was speaking to, this is really the first tier that you win something in Div 3. And, we see a little bit of movement, but again, it's pretty tight. I guess this has a big gap, but I don't, again, I think it's just a random anomaly to last year or last weekend. Of course, we just see more winners, which is quite nice. So we have about 100 winners or so based on this. And then if you go to star rare, the winners are again a handful more winners, maybe half a dozen or so. But I would say that the points are pretty close. This is probably more likely to result week to week, or once we standardize this over several weeks, it'll be maybe a 2-point difference. So not a lot of change at the high end in both of these. Tier 1 rare becomes slightly easier, maybe by about 7 to 10 points. But the biggest takeaway here is that at Div 3, they're really trying to separate the players in this sort of 350 point range and move them over here. What's great is that while they have moved these awards, these prizes to here, the overall points threshold is lower. So you needed around 350 points here to win this card in Div 3. Now it's looking like, again, as per last week only, you only needed around maybe 330 points, 340, something like that. So there you have it. That's what I know so far. I'm going to look at how this weekend went and then start to apply actual participation numbers and point totals, and we'll just start to see how this evolves and how it really helps people get more cards. I think overall what they've done is really smart. I'm a little bummed that I'm not, I probably won't be playing in Div 3 quite as much as I was previously. Right now, given my my roster, I probably belong in this area, but I'll be shooting for sort of these tier 2s and tier 1s. Maybe you're like me and you'll join me. So yeah, good luck this weekend. Should be fun. Cheers.